I always knew I wasn't what the Beaumonts had in mind. Growing up as the youngest daughter in San Francisco's Beaumont legacy meant pearls, prep schools, and private clubs. I didn't fit. While my brother Preston was off sailing regattas and joining hedge fund boards, I spent weekends fixing code and mentoring teens at a local tech nonprofit. Really, Elise? My mother would sigh, eyeing my hoodie and jeans like they were a stain on the family crest. Do you think our neighbors at Pacific Heights would understand this look? She said it the day before the annual Beaumont Foundation holiday portrait. I stood in the sunroom of our restored Victorian, wearing a navy pullover I'd earned after launching a community app that connected underprivileged students with STEM tutors. You think I look fine, I said, brushing cat fur off my sleeve. My brother Preston swept in wearing tailored Tom Ford and smug confidence. Mother, no, she cannot wear that in the photo. The Callaways and the Vandervelts will see this card, Mom said, already rubbing her temples. Elise, please. Just wear the Dior dress I had delivered. That dress could fund 3 laptops for our robotics team, I replied. It's absurd. Preston scoffed. No one cares about your little garage charity. Real value is earned in boardrooms. I turned to my father, but he was glued to his Bloomberg terminal, monitoring his venture capital returns. A daughter who chose public good over prestige, not his favorite portfolio item. The photographer will be here in 15, Mom snapped. Change clothes? Or don't be in the picture. My chest tightened. I looked around at their curated perfection, their desperate grip on image. Fine, I said, stepping away. Take your picture, just don't forget where you're standing. What does that mean? Preston sneered. Smiled. This house? I bought it last month. I own the whole block. The silence was exquisite. If that's your choice, my mother said, her voice crisp, then yes. You don't fit our image. Preston, darling, let's have the photographers start with you by the fireplace. And just like that, I was erased. Not just from the holiday card, but from every family photo after that. Birthdays, galas, fundraisers, even at my high school graduation. I'd graduated valedictorian with a full ride to MIT for biomedical engineering. I stood at the podium speaking about the power of inclusive innovation, about building things that helped people, not just profit margins. From the stage, I saw them. Mom was scrolling through Instagram. Dad kept glancing at his Rolex. Only Preston looked up, just a smirk when I mispronounced neuroplasticity. Later, when everyone gathered for pictures, Mom took me aside. We'll do 2 sets, she said briskly. First, the standard family shots, then a few with you. For the memory book, of course. The memory book? I repeated. Well, yes, she said, already turning away. The main photos are for the Chronicle, the club's newsletter, the alumni bulletins. I'm sure you understand. I looked at Preston, resplendent in custom Burberry, at my mother's pristine cream ensemble, at my father's smile, so wide now that his son stood beside him. Then I shook my head. No, I said quietly, I don't understand, and I don't think I want to be in any photos at all. Mom's relief was almost comical. If that's what you prefer. That night, I made a choice. If I didn't fit their mold, I'd make one so strong it couldn't be ignored. Grad school was merciless, but I thrived. While Preston climbed social ladders and dated heiresses, I was building tools to detect early neural disorders in children. No one came to my white coat ceremony. They were busy attending Preston's engagement soiree in Lake Como. But I kept going. Pediatric biotech became my sanctuary. My lab team became my family. By 31, I was the youngest department head in Boston's top children's hospital. I'd authored breakthrough research, patented 3 surgical prototypes, and was quietly changing lives. But to the Beaumonts, I was still just Elise, the girl who wasted her potential on patients. Sometimes, if you looked closely at the edges of the family photos, you could spot it. An empty sliver of space where a second daughter should have been. I hadn't attended a Beaumont gathering in nearly 7 years when the envelope arrived. Preston was hosting a casual dinner at his new penthouse in Manhattan. Casual, in Beaumont terms, meant 100 guests, valet service, and just one ice sculpture. "You should come," he said when he called. "People are curious about your job." He said job like it was a stain on the linen napkin of his life. "My position?" I asked, amused. "You mean as one of the youngest pediatric neurosurgeons in the country?" A pause. "Right, that." He hesitated again. "Just wear something elegant, okay? No lab coats or flat." I almost declined, but a quiet part of me wanted to see their faces, to be seen, not for approval, but as proof. I arrived in a sleek black dress. Modern. Versace. Not loud, but quietly commanding. The doorman blinked at my name. "Dr. Elise Beaumont?" His eyes flicked up with curiosity. "Penthouse is on 42. Inside, the chandeliers glowed like stardust. Manhattan's elite buzzed between bites of foie gras and crystal flutes of vintage champagne. My mother sparkled near the windows in layers of fresh off-the-runway Gucci. My father clustered with hedge fund executives, likely swapping power plays. "Elise!" Preston's voice sailed through the room. "You actually came." His smile froze. "And you're wearing—" "Oh." "What?" I asked, letting the pause stretch. "It's Versace. Or is that not quite Beaumont enough?" "It's last season," he murmured, scanning me like I was a markdown. "And you're not even wearing earrings." Before I could respond, my mother swept in, all Chanel perfume and hollow kisses. "Elise, darling, we weren't sure you'd make it. You must be buried in that medical work." "Saving lives does get in the way of cocktail parties," I said, sipping calmly, but I thought I'd make an exception. As expected, I became an accessory to avoid. Mom steered donors toward Preston's startup fund. Dad boasted about his son-in-law's hedge fund bonus. The real family centerpiece was still Preston. Then came the call. "Everyone, gather for a photo," my mother sang out, lifting her champagne. If you've ever felt overlooked by the people who were supposed to see you most, hit subscribe. Elise's story isn't over yet, and what happens next will leave the entire room speechless. "Harrison from Society and Style is here to capture the evening," Mom announced, smoothing the front of her dress. I watched as they assembled like clockwork. Flawless smiles, curated angles, a tableau of elite perfection. "Elise," Mom said tightly, gesturing toward the photographer, "perhaps you could help Harrison with his lighting?" "Of course, the unspoken rule. You're not part of the picture, just make others shine." But this time, I smiled. Because what none of them knew was that by morning their polished image would crack, and I would be the one holding it together. The call came at 3:12 a.m. Dad had collapsed in his study, stroke symptoms, possible cardiac involvement. The ambulance was en route to Metropolitan General. My hospital. I was already there, reviewing case notes in the surgical wing when the ER called. I watched from down the hall as Mom rushed in, stilettos clicking wildly, mascara running like ink. Preston followed, dazed and silent in his tux. "I demand the top neurologist," Mom barked at the nurse. "Do you know who we are?" "We're the Beaumonts." Nurse Camille kept her tone professional. "The head of neurosurgery has already been paged, Mrs. Beaumont." "Well, where are they?" she snapped. I stepped forward. "Right here." Mom spun around. Her purse slipped from her hand. Preston blinked, uncomprehending. "Elise?" Mom whispered. "You work here?" "Not quite." I raised my tablet, already reviewing Dad's scans. "I run this department." She stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. "Your husband needs immediate surgery. I've performed this operation 13 times in the past year, successfully." "But you can't," Preston stammered. "You're not—" "Some of the best pediatric neurosurgeons in the country?" I offered. "Actually, Mom opened her mouth, then closed it again. "I developed the technique we're going to use, and unless you'd like to lose him, I suggest you sign these consent forms." Her hands trembled as she took the clipboard. "We'll talk later," I said, professional and calm. "Right now he needs me." As I turned to leave, Preston reached out and grabbed my arm. "Wait," he said, voice unsteady. "How do we know you'll actually help?" After the way we treated you? I glanced at his hand, then locked eyes with him. Because unlike our family portraits, Preston, my integrity isn't just for show. The surgery took 6 hours. It was intricate, high-risk work, the kind that demanded both technical precision and unwavering focus. The kind of case I'd trained for over a decade to handle. The kind that separated real surgeons from those who played power games over champagne flutes. When I finally emerged from the operating room, Mom and Preston were still in the waiting area, disheveled now. Mom's designer blazer was wrinkled, Preston's tie hung loose. Neither of them seemed concerned with appearances anymore. "He's stable," I announced. "We controlled the hemorrhage and stabilized the clot. He'll need rehabilitation, but with time, he should fully recover." Mom burst into tears. Real ones this time, not the staged kind she'd perfected over decades of galas and photo ops. Preston just stared at me, silent, like he was seeing someone he didn't recognize. A nurse approached. "Dr. Beaumont? Shall we transfer Mr. Beaumont to the Elise Beaumont Neurological Wing for recovery?" Mom's head snapped up. "The what?" I calmly signed the transfer forms. "The new neurology wing. It was completed last month." "But it has your name," Preston said slowly. "Yes," I replied. "That tends to happen when you fund it with a $50 million 0 cents donation." The silence that followed was almost sacred. Mom sat down hard, her legs buckling under her. $50 million? "Being a surgeon pays well," I said simply. "So does developing patented instruments. Turns out saving lives is more lucrative and more fulfilling than saving face in the society pages." "But why didn't you ever say anything?" Preston asked, almost pleading. I looked at both of them. Would it have changed anything? Would I have been in the photo? Or just another embarrassment you couldn't explain to the club? They had no answer. They couldn't even meet my eyes. "Mr. Beaumont's being moved now," the nurse said gently. "Dr. Beaumont, would you like to oversee the transfer?" "Yes, thank you." Turn to them. "You can visit him in about an hour. Top floor. You won't miss it. My name's on the wall." As I walked away, I heard Preston whisper behind me, "Mom? What have we done?" The days that followed were a whirlwind of surgery follow-ups and reluctant family conversations. Dad regained consciousness gradually. His recovery was overseen by the top neurology team in the state, my team. When he was lucid enough to speak, I was by his side, checking his vitals in the private suite we'd designed for recovery. He blinked up at the high ceilings, the serene artwork, and the breathtaking skyline view from the top floor. Where am I?" he rasped. "The Elise Beaumont Neurological Wing," Mom answered quietly, seated beside his bed. Gone were the pearls and designer silk. She wore an old cardigan and practical flats. Hospital wear, not high society armor. Dad turned his head slowly toward me, eyes searching. "Your wing?" I nodded, adjusting his IV line. "Yes. Funded by your disappointing daughter, the one who chose purpose over prestige." He reached for my hand, his grip faint but steady. "I was wrong," he said. "We all were." "I know," I said softly. "But you're here now." Over the next several weeks, as he healed, I watched our family's perfect image dissolve, and something more honest take its place. Mom stopped asking about appearances and started asking about treatment options. Preston canceled a slate of real estate cocktail parties to help with Dad's mobility sessions. He even cracked a joke one afternoon about applying for an internship under my chief resident. One day, I found Mom standing quietly in the hallway outside Dad's room, staring at the donor plaque bearing my name and credentials. "All these years," she whispered, "we chased what looked impressive and missed what truly is." "You didn't see me," I said gently. "I'm so sorry, Elise." She turned to me, eyes full. "We were wrong." "Not about everything," I replied. "You were right. I didn't fit your image." I smiled. I surpassed it. A week later, the society pages ran a surprising feature. The Beaumont family celebrates a legacy of healing. No gala shots, no champagne flutes. Just a photo of Dad, steady on his feet, standing beside the sign bearing my name. Another of Mom and Preston sorting donation boxes for pediatric rehab. And in the center, a shot of all of us together. Me in my white coat. My family beside me. This time, I wasn't edited out. I wasn't a shadow at the edge. I was front and center, seen, finally, for who I'd always been. Dad never returned to Wall Street. He now serves on the hospital board, advocating for underserved communities. Mom spends her afternoons reading to kids in recovery. As for me, I still do what I've always done, save lives, only now I don't do it alone. And Preston? He went back to school. He's studying to become a physical therapist. Turns out, watching someone fight to walk again can teach you more about strength than any boardroom ever could. The Beaumont name still carries weight in Boston, but for reasons that finally matter. Not for the galas we hosted or the couture we wore, but for the lives we saved, the research we fund, and the stories we helped rewrite. The society photographers still stop by. But now, they focus their lenses on moments that matter, on families reunited, on patients ringing the recovery bell, on our teams celebrating another life saved. Last Christmas, when it came time for the annual Beaumont family photo, Mom handed me a neatly wrapped box. Inside was a familiar piece of fabric, my old navy moose sweater, the one I wore all those years ago, the one they said didn't belong in the family portrait. "Wear this," she said gently, her voice thick. "It's who you are, and who you are is more than we ever dreamed." So, I did. That photo now hangs in the hospital lobby, just beneath the golden letters of the Elise Beaumont Neurological Wing. No airbrushing, no gowns or tuxedos, just us. Family. Finally real, finally together. Sometimes, in the middle of a long surgery or during a quiet moment in a hallway, I catch my reflection in the glass. Scrubs. A tired face. My old sweater under my white coat. And I smile. Because sometimes being cut from the picture just means you were meant to create your own canvas. Mine is wide and bright and filled with light. It's painted in the colors of resilience, sacrifice, healing, and legacy. Not for applause, not for image, but because it's who I am. The best kind of revenge was never about proving them wrong. It was about becoming someone they'd never be able to overlook again. And the truth is, sometimes the family image doesn't need to be preserved. Sometimes it needs to evolve, to rise to meet the one they tried to leave out. And now the pictures they keep are the ones that tell the truth. The ones that show a family standing not in a ballroom, but in a hospital wing, named after the daughter they once tried to forget. And that's a picture worth keeping. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, or like your worth was measured by appearances instead of impact, then this story is for you. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me, what have you built in silence that others once doubted? What legacy are you shaping, even if no one's clapping yet? And if my journey spoke to you, please subscribe, not just for me, but for every person still fighting to be seen. Remember, your value isn't determined by who includes you in their picture. Sometimes, you're meant to paint your own.